It's a three-horse race for the top spot in the world's third largest democracy as President Joko Widodo ends his second term in office. Anies Baswedan is the only independent in the contest for president. A party or no party, the former governor of Jakarta is a formidable force. He entered politics in 2014, serving as culture and education minister in Jokowi's first term, but was abruptly removed from the post after just 20 months in office for reasons not entirely clear. The 54-year-old has promised to move away from Jokowi-era policies, campaigning as the candidate for change. But accusations of playing identity politics have handed him an uphill task in expanding support beyond his largely conservative base. Now, his running mate heads the Islamic-leaning National Awakening Party. Mohaimin Iskandar co-founded the PKB and has been its chairman since 2005. He made history by becoming one of the youngest ever speakers of the House of Representatives in 1999. His catch cry, equality for all. The two are backed by the Coalition of Change for Unity, an electoral alliance led by the Nasdem party. Leading the opinion polls is military man turned politician Prabowo Subianto. As defense minister and chairman of the Gerindra party, the 72-year-old is no stranger to government. With a career dating back to Suharto's New Order regime, Prabowo cuts a polarizing figure. His military record under the dictator, also his former father-in-law, made him the target of human rights accusations. But that, well, it hasn't stopped the ex-general from setting his sights on the nation's highest office, having lost in both the 2014 and the 2019 races. Many believe that his third time could well be the charm, with legions of Jokowi loyalists supporting him and his running mate, Gibran Rakabuming Raka. He's the mayor of Surakarta in central Java, a successful former entrepreneur and the eldest son of President Joko Widodo. Educated in Singapore and Australia, the 36-year-old's candidacy for vice president has been fraught with controversy from the get-go. That's after the Constitutional Court, headed by Gibran's uncle, ruled that those under 40 could run for president if they have held a regional position. While the pairing has sparked fears of dynastic politics, with speculation that Jokowi is calling the shots, Prabowo and Gibran enjoy the largest coalition backing, with 8 parties throwing their support behind them. That doesn't include the ruling party, though. The PDIP's candidate of choice, Ganjar Pranowo, a 2-time governor of Central Java and an eminent lawmaker before that. The 55-year-old has cast himself as a man of the people. Now, whether it's through TikTok or his grassroots campaign, many have compared it to Jokowi's own highly successful electoral tactics. In fact, the Indonesian leader was widely expected to throw his support behind Ganjar, with the PDIP saying in a statement last year that the two remained inseparable. But talk of a power struggle within the party, well, that emerged last year after PDIP matriarch and former president Megawati Soekarnoputri announced Ganjar as her pick for the party's presidential candidate in what analysts see as an attempt to reassert the party's independence from the president. Ganjar's running mate, Mahfud MD, is described by some as a rare triple threat. His experience spanning all 3 branches of government. Until recently, the 66-year-old was Indonesia's coordinating minister for politics, legal and security affairs. He was also once the Chief Justice of the Constitutional Court, and before that, a member of the House of Representatives. The two enjoy strong support from an alliance led primarily by the Indonesian Democratic Party of Struggle, or PDIP, the current ruling party.
Oh, joining us in the studio, our 3 correspondents who have been covering these elections for us since October, about 100 days, you're telling me. Now, we hear official news lines from wires, what's happening, what analysts say. But what do the 3 of you think on the ground, in the thick of it? Let's start with you, Saiful.
Well, Wei Sue, one of the things which stood out for me, at least, I'm covering Anies Baswedan and Mohaimin Iskandar's running mate, right, is Anies's informal, interactive dialogue session that he started using ever since the start of the campaign began on the 28th of November. It's called Desak Anies or Challenge Anies. It's an informal setting where Anies and the moderator will sit on stage in the middle of the room, surrounded by the audience, and the audience or the participants can ask anything, any questions to Anies, and Anies will respond. Now, I had the opportunity to actually attend a number of Desak Anies or Challenge Anies sessions, and one of the reaction or when I looked at the session was like, wow, so many people, and not only so many people, so many young people. So I think
I'm asking, did anyone ask a question that was in any way contentious, difficult, challenging?
Definitely, because these questions, and Anies has assured the audience that these questions were not planted or manipulated. So these questions are indeed genuine, coming from the participants.
And he answered in a good temper.
That's right. So I think it's a novel approach, and I believe that this is the first time that this kind of campaigning has been done ever since direct elections began in Indonesia in 2004.
Well, Wei Sue, for me personally, and I had the opportunity to attend a rally for Prabowo Subianto, and this is not Mr. Prabowo's first rodeo, right? He's done this. This is the third time that he's contesting for president. He's done this twice before, and he's lost to current President Joko Widodo, and this is his third time. And if we just look at his previous time, just 2019, for example, and there's still video evidence to this day of him slamming the tables in his oration, and he has this reputation. He's a military strongman with a military background, former general, ex-special forces commander as well. So he has this reputation, right? But this time round, and I believe, I think it's safe to say that this has also garnered a lot of attention, is what many perceive to be sort of an image makeover, would you say? And he sort of rebranded, or what is being perceived as a rebrand, rather. And now he is synonymous throughout this entire campaigning period. He's been synonymous with the word gemoy, which is Indonesian slang for gemas, which is cute, cuddly, adorable, among the youth, especially the young voters, and that's what he's been synonymous with.
Okay, I'm not going to hold you to account for this, but you use the word rebranding, which suggests a certain amount of concerted change in image deliberately to foster liking for a person. How genuine is this change in Mr. Prabowo?
Well, based on my experience and just the rally that I've attended, and the rallies, rather, that I've attended, it is a very visible effort. If we're going to call it an effort, it's a very visible, concerted effort. He's certainly more measured compared to, say, 2019, for example. There's definitely no slamming of tables, but rather what has emerged is one of a presidential candidate who is very much he's called for unity in his rally speeches, and he's also mentioned he's very open to working with his opponents in this, the other candidates as well. He's very open to working with them. Even during the rallies, he's very actively telling people, I have a lot of love for President Joko Widodo, for example, and I hold no grudges for the fact that I lost to him twice before. What's important is that I love Indonesia, and we all love Indonesia, and, let's all be careful at these rallies. Let's just watch out for one another. So it's certainly a more measured effort compared to, say, 2019. But I also need to mention this, Wei Sue. One other thing that he does that has gone viral is he dances.
Yeah.
And people love it. People love to see it. I love to see it when I was there at the rally as well.
Well, if Prabowo is dancing, Ganjar is jumping out of helicopter. So he would do something quite extreme, because he would try to brand himself as the fittest among them all. Not the youngest, but is certainly the fittest. He went for running and marathon campaign
you were
trail.
mentioning the Top Gun. What was that?
Top Gun is his brand, which is, you can see it from his jacket, his bomber jacket that he always wears to every campaign or debate events. So Top Gun is also representative of his name, Top Ganjar. So yeah, it's quite smart. I think his campaign team is pretty smart when it comes to creating all these jargons. The satset, which means fast action. Yeah, usually we would associate satset with like paracetamol, instant quick fix to your headache. So his campaign has been always, we'll fix your problem soon. And this is both a plus and a minus for his campaign trail, because everywhere he goes to, he would speak to people on the streets, in the markets. He does this belusukan impromptu style.
This, what you're mentioning with Anies, how much of this is copying Mr. Joko Widodo? And are people catching on? I mean, this has worked before, you're all doing it now. Who is being original on this belusukan business?
I think for Anies, it's not belusukan. He doesn't go to the villages to engage the locals. He doesn't give social assistance to the villages. And what Anies has done in his Desak Anies campaign or Challenge Anies is engaging the people, intellectually engaging the people through questions and answers, so people know what's going on in his mind in terms of policy making. So that's, I would say that it's very different from belusukan or impromptu visits, which is synonymous with Joko Widodo.
I was going to ask you this because I was speaking to a colleague in Malay News, and he said they were watching the debates, and his children, who are at university in Singapore, were very impressed with Anies Baswedan. They say he's the most cerebral of the three. But this colleague told me that is not going to be working in Indonesia. What do you think? What are they looking for in their candidates and seeing in the campaigns?
Because Anies, we have to also understand that Anies is a former lecturer. He's an academician. So in the debates, in the presidential debates, Anies, it's no surprise that he came up tops, because he was able to convey his ideas in a very in a manner which people can understand, which is important. Okay? It's not only about policy making; it's about how you communicate those policies to the people. But unfortunately, if you look at the electorate, Anies reached his ideas to the urban dwellers, to the more educated. What Anies was missing or is missing is the locals, the men on the streets, the farmers, the fishermen. So their ideas are very different from what Anies is trying to communicate with them. So that's why you still see Jokowi's popularity is still very high. And most of the people who support Jokowi are really the men on the ground.
All right. Yeah,
just to pick up on what Saiful's just talked about, people who've been supporting Jokowi are really people on the ground, and your everyday people who are thinking about how can they just go about their days without having to worry. And so it is really then the fact that Prabowo and Gibran have pledged to continue Jokowi's programs that has resonated with a lot of people.
Well, naturally, Ganjar was the initial successor in everyone's mind. They thought Ganjar is going to be the next president and Jokowi is going to show support to Ganjar, which proved to be, a different scenario. But everyone I spoke to in Central Java during my trip has that same idea that Ganjar is a people person. He's the president for rakyat, which president for small people, or wong cilik in the Javanese language. So in Central Java, he's still very massively popular, especially in Semarang. He used to visit people's house. He would even sleep over in people's houses. Some critics say this is just an image building, but for those people who have hosted him, they think he's really the president.
Okay, I want to leave some time for each one of you to have a final comment, but very quickly, because last night we had guests who were, yesterday, Human Rights Watch and a former Deputy Chief Advisor to Joko Widodo, and they were gathering for a rally, a vigil, about 3 kilometers from here, against Joko Widodo. And they said, the unhappiness is widespread. Very quickly, one of you, how widespread is it on the ground? Chad?
When you say unhappiness, you mean the people's dissatisfaction?
Yeah, they assume it's widespread, and I don't know.
Just to give you some context, so people that we've talked to, all three of us, I believe, and I can safely say as well, people that we've talked to on the ground, again, his support still remains hovering around 70%, which is quite a feat in itself to have been achieved for a sitting president at the end of a decade, you know.
So we've got to take these pronouncements with a huge pinch of salt. Now, sorry to interrupt like this. A final word from each one of you. You've got interest in this election. You've been on the ground. Anything you want to say that is different from the usual process? Let's start with you, Olivia first.
Well, for me personally, because I'm based in Singapore, as you know, being in Indonesia and actually covering this on the ground, it helps me make my own personal decision, a well-informed one, not just based on news reports, because I'm actually gathering the news for myself and peeling that layers of onion. It's going to give me a conviction tomorrow for when I go to polling station.
Just to pick up on what Olive just said, you know, just again being in the thick of it, I think it's just really important to remember that even within families, even amongst friends, everyone has different opinions on who they're going to choose, and everyone has various disagreements. But it's also important to remember that everyone has their right to choose who they would like to pick, and it's important to respect that right of each other and keep the disagreements at bay.
Well, for me, the most important would be the outcome of the results tomorrow. Prabowo Subianto has said several times on a number of occasions that he's confident that he will be the outright winner on the 14th of February, and he has a few reasons why he could be right, because if you look at recent surveys showing that he is still the front runner, not only the front runner, but he has crossed that 50% threshold, which you know emboldened him to say such things like he will be the outright winner. And also, if we just a couple of days ago there was a documentary of you know Dirty Votes, yes, which you know which came out during the cooling off period, but you know, people I spoke to, analysts, are saying that the documentary, the 2-hour documentary, will not make a significant impact because at this time, majority of the electorate would have already made up their minds. So this again signals that Prabowo could be the outright winner.
And we will be hearing from the three of you again tomorrow. For now, though, it's back to Dawn in Singapore.
Thanks very much. CNA's Loke Wei Sue there, along with our correspondent Saifulbahri Ismail, Chandni, Vatvani and Olivia Marzuki, live for us from Jakarta.